Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
Last week on Picking the Pride, we asked the question if the Ireland vice-like grip on the Lions jerseys was starting to fade. Now, after round 4, we need to talk about the players who are in line to take the jersey from those faltering Irish names. This is Picking the Pride. Let's start the show.
You're listening to United Rugby Rewind.
I am joined by the Rugby BC, Policeman Ben, and that's Caelan. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
Hello.
How are you doing?
And hello to all of the people who are already upset and commenting very, very loudly down below. Based on,
Are you getting that in early because you know they'll just comment and leave? Is that it?
Yeah. The clickbait. That's what we do here on this channel. It's always just nonsense clickbait. But anyway, we are here to talk about rugby and talk about some rugby that specifically happens this weekend in the Six Nations and its implications for the Lions tour in Australia this summer. So where should we begin? Today, England defeated Italy, today being Sunday for us. And there are a few names from that game which we think, have been in contention for Lions jerseys. And we've spoken about some of them already. But one that we realised we haven't spoken about yet is none other than England winger Tommy Freeman. So, Caelan, this is your nomination for a contender for a starting Lions jersey. Explain in 60 seconds why you think that without hesitation, deviation, or repetition, starting now.
I would just like to put it on the record that I didn't realize I hadn't already talked about Tommy Freeman, despite the fact I've had him in my current Lions team as of right now since round 2 of the Six Nations. So it's a little bit of I was like, oh, he's available. I'll talk about him. Tommy Freeman for me is the man in possession of the number 14 shirt as things stand. As I've said before, I don't think Lowe and Doohan will start together. Mac Hansen isn't playing that well. Darcy Graham, if he can just prove his fitness, he's going to be able to shout. But Freeman is very much in the Farrell mould of what he likes. He likes that kind of the Farrell system, and again, we don't know who the coaches are, is essentially I want flankers at centre, not literally, but you know what I mean. And I want centres on the wing. He likes his big men. Tommy Freeman is in that mould. It doesn't have his height. Well, he does. But I don't speak I don't speak metric.
Which is 6'3"?
Yeah, 6'2" or 6'3". It's taller than me.
6'3".
That's all I know.
Yeah. It's just taller than me. I'm 185 and I'm 6'1" and a bit. So yeah, I'm going to go 6'3".
Everyone's taller than me these days. But I'm a big Tommy Freeman fan though. Like he's a big man. He punches above his weight. He's a good attacker, decent defender. We're not going to get into an England defensive system chat tonight, Hugh. But I like him. I think he's got a good chance of getting in there. And again, because as much as we can talk about England's form and they're doing all right, we have to talk about club form. And if Northampton go on a run, he's going to put himself in the shop window more so potentially than Darcy Graham with Edinburgh, and potentially more so than Mac Hansen with Connacht.
And we are staring down the barrel of England's backline being 100% Northampton Saints at this point. Because when what's his name? Yeah, Freeman. No.
Sladebank and
Furbank.
And Furbank.
Yeah, exactly. Dingwall's come in and Finn Smith's at 10. And once you get Furbank back, then it's looking like the Saints connection is going to be there. I am very impressed by Tommy Freeman. The number of wingers that England cycle through. I urge anybody to look up the Wikipedia list of players capped by England. England have capped best part of 20 wingers in the last 10, 15 years, and the vast majority of them last 2 or 3 caps, and then they bring back what's his name, Thoknisinger, and try him for a couple more games and realise, no, he's still no better than the last time we tried him, and try someone else for a bit. See Caden Murley from the Ireland game. But Tommy Freeman has actually managed to nail down this jersey, and he seems to have the full game. He does the winger stuff, so pace, finishing, etc. He's good in the air. and if you actually contrast him with Slatham on the other wing, the ability in the area, there is quite a discrepancy there. Tommy Freeman is quite a lot better. And like you said, he brings the size, which Farrell will like. Also, just as an aside, I want to mention that on the Six Nations website, when they talk about the positions of players, they go to the trouble of calling Tommy Freeman a right winger. But when we talk about props later, they don't differentiate between tight head and loose head props.
Which is way more important, isn't it?
Is the admin a political nose? Is that what's going on here? They like to differentiate with the wings. There's that. Sorry, that's for myself and Ben's new Wrist is Politics style podcast that's coming up soon.
I think Nigel Farage is on one side of the wing and Rupert Burr's on the other because they fell out, didn't they, a couple of days ago? But yeah, watch this space on them.
And that, folks, is the best joke of the night.
So is Freeman, Ben, really in a chance with starting? Because there's not going to be short of wing options. And we talked about, I can't see, if he's fit, I can't see James Lowe not being in that starting lineup. And then we've talked about whether Doohan and James Lowe work together. But if they don't, then you would think that Darcy Graham, who's someone else we spoke about, would be the obvious option for the other wing. So how does Tommy Freeman fit into this picture?
I don't know if he does. I think if you've got James Lowe, who I think is the first pick on that wing, but we don't know the outcome of this injury from yesterday, whether it's just something that's precautionary. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's a
the prognosis of that.
So that could be anything.
So it's nothing like Dupont's obviously injury yesterday. It rules him out for the rest of the year. But yeah, it just depends on whether Farrell wants to go like for like on both wings. But if he doesn't and James Lowe's on one wing, then I fully expect Darcy Graham to take the 14 shirt because it does offer that differentiation. Darcy Graham's quicker. Darcy Graham's better at going through contact. Darcy Graham is actually good under the high ball. So I think that would be those would be my two wingers.
I think to Tommy Freeman's credit, he is very good in attack. He's not as flashy as Darcy, but he is quite powerful. And again, like, I know we're doing a pod, and I say this every week, I know we're doing a pod about the Lions, we talk about individual players, but rugby is not a game that you can take each player individually in isolation. But for me, with Freeman, he has the pace, he has the defensive nose, he's a tall guy, he's good in the air, maybe doesn't have the best kicking game, but I think Irish people like myself seem to think we have this kind of like stranglehold on what a good kicker is because we all play Gaelic football. And I noticed there was GA references in the comments last time, so I'm gonna try and pigeonhole them in as much as I can.
Can I just say very quickly, the person who replies to the comments is producer Lee, not any of us. So just chucking that in there.
Producer Lee,
I will chip in on occasion.
Yeah,
I'll chip in on occasion diplomatically.
And if I do, it's usually from my rugby account as kind of a just throwing this out there that I have one of these on YouTube. But no, I like Tommy Freeman. I think he's a good player. It's not a hill I'm going to die on that he'll start. Darcy Graham could play really well next week, and I'll swing towards him. Or Tommy Freeman could play really well, and I'd be more inclined to go with Freeman. It's one of those decisions. But yeah, I think Freeman's in a very good position. I do think he'll tour, if I'm honest, because the fact that he can cover centre as well as wing. Ollie Lawrence has just gone down injured today. Is going to be a factor. Hugh Jones, obviously, he can play 15. Whether he goes, someone is going to have to miss out. We talked about this at centre anyway. If Owen Farrell tours, that makes the kind of hybrid centres less likely. We're going to talk about another guy who can cover centre in just a minute. The flexibility is massive, but I think Freeman, to his credit, on his current form and with how you expect the back end of the season to unfold, I think he's in a good spot.
I think you make that point well.
Sorry,
yeah, with Northampton. So with Northampton potentially going deep and probably going to a Premiership final, and with Edinburgh season, if we don't beat the Lions in the round of 16 Challenge Cup, because we've got a fair run there. Our league, I mean, it could be over by end of April, first week of May, and that's a big gap between the Lions obviously starting up against that first test against Argentina. It could be 6 to 7 weeks there of no rugby. So it may be that Farrell goes for Freeman based on, the fact that he's just continued to play and he's, match ready, match fit. So there is obviously that to his advantage, just the club form at the moment.
I do think that Freeman is the real deal, and it's one of those ones where if you've got the physical attributes, that's going to get you far enough. And he's got the physical attributes and the IQ, which again is something that I think a lot of England wingers have lacked in the past.
Do you know what that is as well? And I'm not going to try and say that, take away from England. Northampton are a very well coached team, and a lot of their players look well coached. Like Freeman is one of those. Furbank is another. Finn Smith. Like Finn Smith's he's only a child. Like again, we kind of forget this about him. I know we've talked about him before.
And the
He
upheaval
looked
that
very
he's
well
encountered in 4 years as a pro. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Where
Yeah.
he's at.
Yeah. So, but the thing with wingers is that's the one position where you just need to have a white hot 6, 8, 9 months, and then you can get in. Because if your job as a winger is to score tries, then sometimes you just get in the team just by being in top form. And there is like you can look back at Lions test teams in the past and go, wow, geez, he really did nothing after that tour. And normally that is a winger who hit white hot form that year and then got into the Lions squad, and then after that was never hit that peak again. You know, I'm not going to name
Well,
names, but that
you look at the last couple of years, and I'm not going to say none of these players did anything afterwards, but the turnover on the wings is massive. You had Bow and Fitzgerald and Monya, then you had Cuthbert and Bow and North, then you'd North again with. Did Liam Williams play on the wing in 2017? I'm not sure.
no fullback.
Fullback.
It was Anthony Watson on the wing
Anthony
in
Watson
17.
was there. Watson was there in 21 with Reece Zammit and
Duhan.
I don't think
Duhan.
Reece
Duhan.
Zammit played in a test. He might have played in the final test.
But he was thereabouts anyways. I think he did play one of the tests. So like the turnover is massive. And wing, as you said, it's about getting into form. Like if Freeman can bolt into form, like there's still room for Faye also to bolt into form for another Welsh option. I know we talked about some of them in recent weeks. You know, obviously for Mac Hansen we mentioned, for Darcy Graham who we mentioned, there is room, there is scope. Start scoring tries. If we find out that Louis BRE has English relatives or Irish relatives, get his brother on the plane. Do you know what I mean? Like it can't it might work, but look,
Yeah.
that's just the position we're in.
Just last thing on Tommy Freeman then. I pulled up this example of his try against Italy today as an example of isn't Tommy Freeman good? But I think what I've accidentally shown is just the absolute disaster class that is Italy's defense and backfield cover at the moment, because this is absolutely abysmal.
Goes
Now,
on audio, the Freeman try, they pull it back, Staley stabbing through, Capuzzo is too high up, and who's covering across? I can't see.
Garbisi.
It's Gallagher, I think, is it? Or is it
No, it's
Garbisi?
Garbisi. Paolo Garbisi.
And he's just, there's no connection between the
Look,
two.
watch this as an attempt as a tackle.
Look, that's happened to many a people on rugby fields across our listenership, where you're just sprinting across and you get beaten on the inside because of it. But look.
Oh no! Our next contender doesn't have a photo on the Six Nations website.
Just when you thought it was something serious.
And just when you thought I was prepared. Gosh darn it. But there's a metaphor here, because we all thought we'd already spoken about this guy. And then I've gone back and I've checked the tapes and no, we hadn't. So we're going to talk about him now. And this is your contender, Ben. The man with no face.
TJ. Mr. Tom Jordan.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a smashing shot of Tom Jordan. For anyone
That
who's on audio and just skipped through for a couple of seconds.
They could have just got a picture of Rory Darge, because I think they were separated at birth, to be honest. They do look quite alike. My mate, I was up in York yesterday seeing my best mates, and he mentioned it. He goes, they look a bit alike, don't they? I was like, yeah, they do. Phenomenal game from him yesterday. First Scotland try. Took it very, very well. And I think he's because of the versatility, I think he has to go. I think he can play 10, 12, 15. I think he's a shoo-in the way he's playing at the moment.
I think he's on the plane. I think he's there. If I flip the question around, why would he not go? And I can't think of a reason. But
he's been dominant in a dominant team for the last 18 months, and he has taken to Scotland shirt like a duck to water. Like, there's been thrown at the deep end against the Springboks last year, looked pretty good under the high ball, and then he's just cracked on. And playing at 12 yesterday, they obviously preferred him to Stafford McDowell, who did have the shirt at the start of the tournament. McDowell did come on, and Jordan moved to 10 when things went a bit squiffy yesterday, for want of a better term, the last 20 minutes. But again, he's just got this power and nous and ability just to go through contact. And I was just very, very impressed with him yesterday. I think after Kinghorn, did deserve man of the match. I think TJ would have been a very close.
I would have given it to TJ. I watched the game back this morning, and just everything that he did was just sensational.
I think if Jordan had stayed at 12 for the entirety of the game, and Finn Russell hadn't come off, which he did, because obviously there was precautionary post concussion and maybe slight injury scare with him, that if he'd stayed at 12, I think he might have been more likely to get it. Maybe would have got it. But the fact he moved to 10 and things went a bit awry, I think that maybe counted against him. Because we didn't score after the 55th minute yesterday. I don't think Scotland after Kinghorn scored his
No, held up
last try.
twice. Held up twice. But the thing about him for me as well is I had in my head that he was a bit small. But I'm just watching those clips. I mean, Wales aren't the biggest team, but he looks like a proper athlete. He's another one, 188 centimeters. We think that is 6'3", and he's got enough bulk behind him. He does look like he's upper body, put on a bit of upper body weight, and yeah, I'm just a huge fanboy of Tom Jordan. Like he's going to look incredible for Bristol next year. I think he's going to be the best player in the English Premiership next year.
I remember when he first started playing with Glasgow, and he was quite indifferent, I think. And did he get sent off against Leinster in a quarter final? Munster, and it was a high head. Was it a head knock off the top of my head? And
high tackle, a shoulder charge tackle on Conor Murray as he was running down
into
the left
touch.
wing.
Yeah, and I thought, mate, I'm not sure if you're cut out for this level, and he's proven me wrong.
That day, I think, didn't he?
He did, yeah, because I think Hastings obviously gone and Duncan Weir had gone. Maybe just come back. Yeah, there wasn't. Glasgow didn't really play with a proper 10 for that sort of season, I don't think. And I think he now needs to just play at 12, full stop. Now that Hastings is back at Glasgow, I think he needs to be 12 for the rest of the season.
But
if Tupolot is out, until Tupolot is back, he's got to play there. I think it's going to be TJ and Hugh Jones starting centre pairing for Glasgow.
Or do you put him full back and keep Stafford McDowell? Because if you do go with Tom Jordan, and obviously this is a URC podcast, I love getting shot about the URC on the Lions show, but is there a chance that if you go Tom Jordan, that you really miss the ballast of Sewn more? That if you just go McDowell with Tom Jordan in the backfield pulling the strings. Now I know they've got good outside backs, don't get me wrong, but
I think the quite obviously Ollie Smith's come back now, isn't he? He played at centre for his first game in 2 years, and he obviously usually plays fullback with a single Josh McCarr, and then Cordero and Cancellieri and Carl Stein are the three wingers. I think until Tupolot is back, I think Tom Jordan's got to play 12. I think it depends on these conversations that go on behind closed doors, don't they? Is Farrell having a word with Franco Smith and saying that if you play TJ at 12 for the next 3 months before Tupolot comes back, he's on the Lions tour. You're going to do it, aren't you? Because he wants to do. I don't know if those conversations go on. They may well do. No one, absolutely no idea, no insight whatsoever. But
the only real comments is who gets their Lions photo taken during the Six Nations, because secretly, unsecretly, we all know that happens during the Six Nations when everyone is together.
I think they said that the kit supplier Canterbury starts prepping around now. So Farrell will have had to send a long list of players to Canterbury,
45 players maybe,
to get their sizes and stuff. So
you'd have to be going to 60, 70 guys nearly.
60, so someone at Canterbury knows who has seen that list and knows who's in contention.
And if you're watching our podcast, maybe just drop some initials into the chat and
TJ.
TJ12.
But in terms of being a contender, I'm not sure I see him in the starting 15, but I can very much see him wearing the 23 jersey.
Yeah, 23 would be right for me. I think utility back at the moment. It depends on when Tupolot comes back from injury, I think, and if he gets enough of a run towards the end of the season to really get himself match fit again. It's a shame that that's happened, but it's given Jordan an opportunity, and he's seized it, quite clearly seized it. But we'll see how he plays at 12 next week in Paris.
Palin didn't like the 23 shout.
No, you didn't. What
It's
do you
not for
reckon?
me. Sorry, guys. I don't see it. Don't get me wrong. There's less likely things to happen. He can cover, but I think push comes to shove. I think we'll end up seeing Hugh Jones or Gary Ringrose in that 23 shirt. That's my belief. Whoever doesn't start, I think is who's going to wear that shirt.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, let's talk about
It's just an opinion, guys.
Oh no!
Another guy without a photo, isn't it?
No, worse. He's got worse than no photo. I'll show
It's
you
a
now.
wrong photo.
404 page not found.
Lads. And Ollie Chester
This is a great thing for the joke that me and Dr. Harley Worthy always make to each other, is that England's second row is Maro Itoje twice, and there's no such thing as the other England second row, and that Ollie Chesham is made up. And the fact that on the Six Nations website they don't show you what he looks like. They show you that he wears an England jersey, but not what he looks like. Just supports that
And in
theory that Ollie Chessum doesn't in fact exist. And yet,
and in
despite the
feet and
fact,
inches, 6'6" for
yeah,
everyone who still does Imperial.
despite the fact that he doesn't exist, he is my contender for the Lion Sword because we've spoken a lot about second rows, and we've spoken previously on other pods about how Mario Itoje and Tyburn is a shoe-in for the Lions starting second row. But Ollie Chessum is that thing which I have started to like more and more, is the lock six hybrid. And Ollie Chessum actually this season, and I think in his whole career, has played more at six than at second row, even though we all think of him as a second row at test level. So I think that's what brings him into it. Obviously, he's there as the line-out option, that you can't have too many of those, and he was player of the match against Italy today. Now, I don't think there's any match
Oh,
highlights
that's
of
his
him
face.
doing
There we go.
much. Oh, there you go.
That's
That's what he
pretty
looks like.
decent to get man of the match, which is huge. Sorry, player of the match, which is usually a narrative award when you played Italy and scored 47 points. That's pretty decent. Fair play to Ollie Chessum. I didn't see much of this game because I went on a nice walk because we've had our last day of summer until July today. So I
False
decided to
spring.
use the opportunity to go for a walk. But no, I think he's a fine player. I've said before, Hugh, that I can see Tyburn being picked at 6, but I would probably go with like an Ollie Chessum type player. And I think he is. I'm gonna piss off Irish fans again, and I'm sorry, but what Irish fans see in Joe McCarthy, I think that's what Ollie Chessum is. But I think he's a little bit further along the road. He's 2 or 3 years older, like that's natural. I think that's the position. He's that elite power second row, power forward, who is very proficient at the line out. He carries well. He does have a tendency to give away a lot of penalties. He led the Six Nations last year in penalties conceded. But carries well, tackles well, huge engine on him. And I know we're not doing a full depth chart right now, but second row is probably going to have an English tint to it. I can see there being 3 English second rows at most. Depends on who drops out and who's injured and whatever. But like you can't. Maritoji will tour, Chessum or Martin will tour, and possibly both if injuries go their way. So they have depth there, which is credit to them. Chessum, I really like Chessum. I think he's a very good player, and respect for the ginger community, of course.
What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
I think whether these England players get picked is all going to come down to whether they remarkably win the Six Nations next weekend. I think that if you win the Six Nations, I think players you maybe 50-50 on are more likely to go than not if you've got that title behind you. I think history's proven that. So yeah, if he's that sort of like like kind of like hybrid forward that can play second row and play six, I think Farrell would take someone like that. I don't think we've got depth in that second row. I think after Byrne and Maritoji, I think there's only maybe a couple of candidates go there. I don't think any Scottish players will go there. I think apart from Jack Morgan, I think Wales are going to struggle to contribute in that department too at present.
Wales don't have a lock six hybrid.
Yeah,
just don't have one, and I don't think Scotland have one either. And if you talk about the point of are any Scottish second rows going on current form, probably not.
No.
So
we talked about Johnny Gray a few weeks ago, but
yeah.
I think that was more kind of hopeful, misty-eyed kind of.
So if you're talking 6 second rows, at the moment you're probably talking 2 or 3 from Ireland, 2 or 3 from England, and then there's a question of can a Welshman do enough in these last couple of games? And I think there's one who maybe could, but we're not talking about him on this show, so we'll come back to that another time. But yeah, and I think specifically for that hybrid on the flank thing, because I can, especially if they lose the first test, I think that's one immediate change that they'll make. That's whichever way you go the other way for the second test.
Yeah.
So I just think it's to not take him because I guess Ryan Baird would be the only other real option there.
I think it's Byrne and Chessum. I think that's it, really. I don't think anyone else is at their level as that kind of test caliber line starting lock six. I don't think there's anyone else at their level. I think George Martin has played a bit of six, but he's not like of the three.
Actually,
he's probably the weakest
it's interesting that both Chessum and Martin have played more at 6 than they have at 4.
Okay.
So that's just one of those quirks of how the Leicester Tigers have got 2 locks in the England team, and neither of them play for both of 5-6 hybrids. I don't know they've managed that, but somehow they have. Okay. So that's the end of the contenders section of the show. If you've liked what you've heard so far and you are new around here, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel, or if you're listening on an audio format, give us a 5-star review and share a link with a mate. It's really hard to grow audio formats, rugby podcast chat stuff. So any support that you can offer us in that regard is massively appreciated. So it's now time for the head-to-head. This is where we pick 2 players who faced off this weekend, pit them against each other and say which one of them came out on top. So this week it's for the love of props. So we haven't done much prop loving.
I'm so happy. For people who didn't know, I was only half on my phone when you were discussing what matchup we do. And I think Hugh, you sent it in, we would do 2 props, and I punched the air. Props deserve more love. I honestly think we need to do a prop segment every week. So this is brilliant.
Okay, so this week it's loose head props, and no prizes for guessing the facts that the 2 Lions nations that played each other in Wales and Scotland are supplying the loose head locks. Now, we've spoken previously about... Actually, no, I'll come to that in a moment. So, famously, I'm reminded of the Scrum of the Earth podcast. Shout out David, absolute legends. Had the stats guy, James, I forget his surname, apologies, on the podcast, who said stats don't really work for props. So with that in mind, here's the stats for these 2 players, who are Pierre Schumann and Nicky Smith. I wanted to call him Nicholas Smith there. I've never heard anyone call him that, but let's say his full name probably is Nicholas. So in this game of Scotland versus Wales, Schumann won out on the carries front. He got 22 meters from 10 carries. Smith got 5 from 5. So a clear win for Schumann on that front. However, Nicky Smith did beat a defender, which Schumann did not. Neither got any line breaks. Nicky Smith passed the ball twice. Schumann did not pass the ball a single time. Both lost 2 turnovers. Both had 100% scrums. Now, scrum stats are flawed, so just don't worry about that. Tackles made. Wales made a lot more tackles than Scotland, so Smith made 12 tackles to Schumann's 5. Schumann did not miss 1. Nicky Smith missed 1, but also made 1 dominance. Schumann, however, did win a turnover and catch a line-out, neither of which Smith did. Fun fact, when I was at Wales Island, I noticed Nicky Smith was practicing line-out throws. So he is the surprise third choice line-out thrower.
The Keen Healy style. Shift. Imagine, just for a split second, imagine scrummaging against Nicky Smith at hooker, because he's already a mean scrummager at loose head prop. Like, no, your poor shoulders.
Penalties conceded. Nicky Smith did give away 1, which was at scrum time, but it wasn't on his own put-in, so it doesn't affect his scrum. It wasn't on his own put-in, so it doesn't affect his percentage. Neither scored a try, neither got a try assist. In terms of physicality, Smith is just shorter at 183 to 184 for Schumann, but Smith does carry a weight advantage. Take that with a pinch of salt. I can imagine these 2 have had a breakfast or 2 since they were weighed. So it's 118 versus 120. Call it the same. Might as well be the same. So an interesting matchup. I think we can say, guys, not normally an area of rugby where we do head-to-heads. I can't really think of a time where I've seen loose head props put up against each other. So what's the thoughts? Oh, I just want to mention as well, I made a note to myself, Schumann ruck stats. Schumann also hit a lot of rucks in this game. Nicky Smith, not so much, but I couldn't fit that into the table. So anyway, thoughts?
I let Ben go first, seeing as it's one of his own that's up there.
I think Schumann he was utterly dominant yesterday until he went off. The Scottish scrum was fantastic. As soon as he went off, and so did Dave Cherry, it faltered. And I think that just shows how pivotal he is to that front row at the moment. Again, he's someone who had a bit of a journeyman kind of passage in rugby until he came to Edinburgh. And obviously then he's got a qualified Scottish residency and gone straight into the national team. But he just plays this power, his jackling. He just loves taking the ball into contact, and you saw that with the stats that you just put up there. He's just one of those players who just will continue to go on and on and on. And he just, whenever he goes to, I think his post-contact meters will be pretty high as well. I know you haven't got that stat there, but I'd suspect it's quite high. because whenever he goes into combat, he does gain quite a lot in before he goes down, and obviously the ruck takes place. But I think for a loose head, I do think he's got a chance of going. I think he's at the right age. He never fails to perform. I remember, this is going back away. I remember an Edinburgh game. He came on in the 60th minute, and he dominated the game that much. He was man of the match for playing 25 minutes of a URC game, and I think that just shows like the level of the importance he has to club and country. Is that when he's not playing, you notice he's not playing, and I think that just shows the good sign of his power and his poise and his technique as well. I think there was a little bit around the edges there that needed to be polished, but I think that now has taken place, and he does look a very, very all around, top loose head prop at the moment. And I think with him and Ferguson, yesterday they were very, very dominant over that Welsh scrum, both at the set piece and in the ruck in open play. So. Yeah, he's someone, because he plays with Edinburgh, I obviously see a lot more of him than maybe the average person, and he never fails to perform at club level. And I think you see that at national level too, and hopefully he's in Farrell's book of names.
Yeah, I don't have his post-contact meters, but I can tell you that Ollie Chesson got the most meters post-tackle of any player in England versus Italy with 53, which is a lot.
That is a lot.
So, Caelan, what's your thoughts on Pierre Schumann?
Pierre Schumann for me is the backup to Andrew Porter right now. I do think there's three obvious guys with slight wiggle room for someone to bolt in with form or with injuries, and that's Porter, Genge, and Schumann. I think Schumann right now is behind Porter. The only thing is, as much as Pierre Schumann is very, very talented and very proficient in his own right, whether or not the Lions will take a leaf from Ireland playbook and just play Andrew Porter for 70 minutes, it is a factor. Because I do think he starts. Like even yesterday, as poor as Ireland were, Porter locked out the scrum. He was Ireland's top tackler. So I feel like he would start. I think Schumann brings you something different, and I do think that's a really nice 1-2 punch in the front row, because he's more aggressive in carrying the ball, probably hits a few more rucks. Porter is very much and more of a defensive stopper than Schumann, who's more of a primary ball carrier for you. Nicky Smith, on the other hand, and I know I was asked about Pierre Schumann, but Nicky Smith for me could squeeze his way in. Now the only thing is Nicky Smith isn't guaranteed starter at Leicester Tigers. They've got good loose head props there. I think they've got 3 pretty solid loose head props, if I remember correctly. Because I know James Cronin is there, and I think they have someone else as well. So he probably needs a big push at the end of the season or an injury. I think Genge has to be the front runner, just on kind of pedigree is not the right word, but you know what I mean. I think it's those 3. But for me, Schumann is the number 2. He's in that bracket for me where you could put him down as a contender or as a bolter, and I could argue or agree with either or. Do you know that kind of way? Because I do think it'll be Porter's jersey, the number 1 jersey, but Schumann will be there, and Schumann offers a lot. I would love to see him and Porter as a 1-2 punch, though. I think if you start, say, for example, start the All-Irish front row, and then you're bringing on Schumann, Ferguson, and Jamie George, or Dowie Lake, or Dewey Lake, or whatever way you say it, or
just say Lake.
You're going to slate again, okay, in the comments.
Mr. Lake from the Ospreys. I think you've got something really nice there, or Jamie George, or Theo Dan. So yeah, I think there's loads of good options there front row. I think to their credit, this is the thing about the Lions tour. You can use your benchmark because you should have more depth. By nature you should, but obviously that's not always the case when it rolls around. But for me, Schumann, the number 17 shirt right now. If there's an injury, maybe he gets number 1. But he has to tour, and he deserves it. I think he is a quality operator, to his credit, like he is.
If Xander Ferguson starts on the other side, then the replacement props mightn't get much game time, because that's 2 players who regularly play 70, 75 minutes.
Yeah. Ferguson came up slightly early yesterday, didn't he? But yeah.
But from Nicky Smith's point of view, he's got extremely good PR, because there's an Ospreys fan who has quite a large platform within rugby, and Nicky Smith gets a lot of very good PR from that, and so his reputation is maybe larger than what his actual Test career warrants. Now, a lot of that is that Gatland didn't like his face and didn't pick him for ages. When Nicky Smith first burst onto the scene, he was almost like one of those extra flanker type front rowers where he was very good around the loose, but maybe his scrummaging wasn't what he was known for. He was known for his jackal turnovers and for having a wicked step on him. And I remember in Judgment Day, one year, this is years ago, but he did this amazing pickup off his toes and flicked it to the winger who scored a try. It was an unbelievable piece of skill. So that's kind of what he's known for. But in recent years, he became known for as a scrummager. Now, about Nicky Smith and how he scrummages, and probably the reason why he hasn't been in the Wales team is because Jonathan Humphreys has been saying that he wants the scrum to be a pushing competition. Now, that's not what Nicky Smith is here for. Nicky Smith is here to win a penalty. So if you look at the Ospreys scrum stats from last year, you'll see that the Ospreys won the most penalties at scrum time in the league, but also gave away the most scrum penalties in the league. I've spoken to people who have scrummaged against Nicky Smith, and they say the Ospreys would play silly buggers, and he was their best scrummager, so you would say that he was the silliest bugger in a good way. And Dan Sheehan called it out last week as well when Wales were getting scrum penalties off Ireland. He said that Wales were using the dark arts to win that. That's Nicky Smith's game.
Oh, come on, like no front row forward in any rugby code, and I include rugby league in this.
But I've heard it elsewhere as well. I've heard
I
it
get
before that.
But at the same time, like Irish, and I don't mean this with disrespect to Dan Sheehan, but I've seen an awful lot of Irish pundits run the same line. Oh, Nicky Smith, he was illegal, he was this, he was boring. Andrew Porter's the exact same thing. Like,
Yes,
Tyke Furlong's the exact same thing. Sandra Ferguson. I'm sick to my teeth of people giving out about props being illegal. If they're getting away with it, do it. Nicky Smith won a shit ton of penalties last year, apologies, I swear. Won a lot of penalties in the URC last year because he was a dominant scrummager. It wasn't always legal, but he was dominant and he was powerful. That, to me, is what matters. I understand he's probably not likely to go on the Lions tour. But one thing that might go in his favour is that fact. He is a very similar scrummager to Andrew Porter. He's very, very aggressive. It's probably something that if you had a very aggressive tight head, which I don't think any of them really are, to be honest, could stand against you. But like, I don't buy that argument of like, oh, dark arts, so illegal. Everyone's illegal. It's a scrum. Like, come on.
So I think one of the things, if you're thinking about picking Nicky Smith, I think that's when you do your research on the referees, because Nicky Smith is one of those ones where he can look like a scrumming god with one referee and he can get pinged off the park by another referee. If a referee decides they don't like him, they'll just penalize him all day long. So I think once you know who the referees are, research those referees. If you find one of them gives grace at scrum time, then Nicky Smith becomes a very viable option. If one historically just doesn't like people doing the dark arts, maybe he's not the one to go for. Maybe
which refs go into the hat, do you think? Ben O'Keefe, James Dolman, Martin,
Ben O'Keefe,
Williams.
every day of the week.
French refs would probably suit him. Because French refs have typically suited Andrew Porter,
Nika.
and if they're typically
Nika.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, we're just naming who might actually be a referee.
Oh, who might do it? Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't think Nika would suit him, but I think he could get it. Depends. I think he's higher rated up here than down there.
Who are the two South African refs? There's one white and one black that you tend to see doing the bigger games. Names are lost on me at the moment.
No, I don't
think if that's who you're
I
thinking.
don't think any of them are at the level for a Lions tour. I think Ben O'Keefe and Nika are the two standouts for me, and then it's a case of
There'll be a French ref.
the French one.
Bruce, maybe. It's hard to know.
Oh, Piardi.
Yeah, Luca Piardi.
No, Andrea Piardi.
Andrea Piardi, yeah, sorry. Maybe.
He's a front runner.
He's highly rated in fairness.
He was pretty good yesterday. The Scotland Wales game, I thought.
I didn't see the game. I can't judge. But yeah.
Anyway, so what were we talking about? Oh yeah, props. So yeah, that's the risk with Nicky Smith. If you've got Porter, and if a ref decides they don't like Porter on that day in history, they probably won't like Nicky Smith either. So that's where you need to do your homework on the referee and see, will they allow someone to win scrums by bending the rules rather than just pushing harder, like a South African, like Oxen Shea, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So we now move on to the part of the show where we talk about bolters. These are players who perhaps not many people would have down as being a part of that Lions tour squad, but we think have an outside shout, and we've got a good reason why. So my good reason is accompanying the player known as Gareth Anscombe this week. Now, that will surprise a lot of people. I don't think anybody is really talking about Gareth Anscombe in Lions contention at the moment. But here's my reason why. Also, Gareth Anscombe has a lot more than 16 Wales caps. Maybe that's just in the
So Six Nations appearances.
Six Nations appearances. Okay.
Which is quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 10 jersey for the Lions is starting to look a bit flaky. So everyone before the tournament was saying Finn Russell, and I think a lot of people still are saying Finn Russell. Now, I spoke to people before, like months ago, who said that they thought that the 3 Lions 10s, if we assume there's going to be 3 10s, is going to be Finn Russell, Owen Farrell, and Marcus Smith. Now, the way it's transpired is Finn Russell is I don't think that Finn Russell can play badly enough to not go on the tour. I think he's on. The only thing stopping him going is injuries. But he's not been at his best in the Six Nations. Owen Farrell hasn't kicked a ball properly in ages, and Rasinger absolutely dog poo in the top 14. And he was out with a hernia injury for ages. I think Owen Farrell's going to have to be banking on a lot of credit being in the bank to go on this tour at this point.
I've heard chat about him leaving. He's come back to Leicester, isn't he? They reckon,
Leicester
to replace Pollard.
I think Farrell only goes if Finn is injured, because I think they'll be like, shit, we need someone experienced. I think that's the only way he goes.
And then Marcus Smith, I think, is the one stand-up player to me over the Six Nations who started off with 1 foot on the plane and now has no feet on the plane. Because
he's not even in the departure lounge at the minute.
He came off the bench against Italy. He got
getting an Airbnb in the Cotswolds for the summer.
He's in Gatwick and everyone's flying out of Heathrow.
No, not even Gatwick, mate. Southend, Stansted, Gatwick.
Stansted, yes.
Did you know Southend had one? Go on.
So Marcus Smith, I think he's been displaced by Finn Smith, is now playing at fullback. He's not going great at fullback. I'm just going to be honest. He's not fullback.
Do you think? I don't think he's been bad at fullback.
No, Italy targeted him with high balls today, and he was found out. He lost 3 contestables in a row. So what that means is you're looking at Finn Russell is still on the plane, and now you're looking at the 2 other names are Finn Smith, who I think has been brilliant, and we've spoken about on a previous episode, and Sam Prendergast are the other 2 names. Now, that's 1 very experienced 10 and 2 very, very green 10s. And I think you're a brave man if you're taking Sam Prendergast and Finn Smith and Finn Russell and no one else.
I think that's the 3 that goes. I genuinely think that's the 3 that goes. And I still think, despite what we've seen the weekend, I still think Sam Prendergast is in the driver's seat because Farrell likes him. And ultimately, that's a big factor because, read any Irish team sheet for the last 5 years. If Farrell likes you, it is a factor.
So Gareth Anscombe hasn't been playing amazing, but if they were to decide, no, we're not taking 1 experienced 10 and 2 newbies on a Lions tour, that's not what we need. And, we're not... Everybody else everywhere is already discussing Sam Prendergast's performance against France in depth, so we won't bother doing it. But let's just say the discussion is happening. So Gareth Anscombe has been there, done that. He's not been on a Lions tour, but he's played in big games for Wales. He's beaten South Africa in South Africa. He's won Grand Slams. He sadly missed out on going to a World Cup, but he has been to a World Cup quarterfinal in 2015. He can play fullback at a push, so he's got that positional versatility. And the thing in my head that matters, that no one else is talking about, but in my head I've decided it matters, he's played Super Rugby, so he's toured Australia before. So, for me, I think Gareth Anscombe is starting to look a little bit more appealing, even if he's not perhaps in the best form ever. He's just, maybe, if you don't want to take green 10s, he's the other experienced 10 that is available. Ben, thoughts?
He's not going. He was bad yesterday. He was poor. I know Prendergast was also poor, but I think Prendergast goes along with Finn Smith and Finn Russell, and I think you rely on TJ as a fourth 10 if you need someone to step in at 10 if something goes wrong with Finn Russell. Yeah. I think that's what will happen.
It's not great
that's my
this year, is it?
solution.
Like on paper,
There's
it's
lack
a
of
good 10
competition.
depth chart, but it's like Finn Smith is playing the best of them. I think I think you'd be foolish to say otherwise. Sam is raw, like very raw, and Finn is in a bit of a dip of form. But like the two guys who are like 22, 23 years of age, and an older guy who's not playing as well is not like it's not bigger Farrell Sexton of 2017, is it?
Yeah.
I think the litmus test for Finn Russell is the French game next Saturday. I think because we go there with something to play for. I mean, obviously, if we beat France, England, they might win the tournament. But I think there's an opportunity for them to really put his foot on that game. And now with Dupont out, how are France going to play? Because it was interesting yesterday, wasn't it? So when Dupont went off, obviously Luca came on and was very, very strong, but France went to playing off 10, didn't they? A lot more. Entamak was a lot more involved in the game. So just if it's a 10 versus 10 battle next Saturday, it might be a very different game that Russell's got to manage. So it'll be interesting to see how that transpires. But Russell was great yesterday. I think 5 and 5 off the tee. That the pass to Darcy Graham's try was absolutely fantastic. That delayed pass, step inside, and then push it out once. He was very good yesterday. And again, when he went off yesterday as an injury precaution, the back line did fall apart a little bit once Jordan went into that position. Obviously, Stafford McDowell went at 12 and got the missed tackles. So, I think he kind of regained a lot of his, stature yesterday in that game. And I think next week will be pivotal to see which direction he's going. And Bath are going deep into the top. Are going to probably be Premiership finalists along with Northampton, I would suspect. So, he's going to be playing a lot of rugby between now and the day the touring squad gets announced. But yeah, I think it's those three, and there might just be a utility back that we rely on for a fourth choice 10 just in case one of those three get injured. But I don't think Anscombe can go.
Well, Bear Kinghorn can play 10 in an emergency.
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with my mate yesterday. We were watching rugby, and we're talking about Kinghorn, and I don't think Kinghorn can play 10. I'm not convinced. When I saw him play for Edinburgh at 10, a lot went wrong.
Can I throw out an alternative there though? Kinghorn might be too close to the starting 15 to be your backup 10.
Well, he's going to play
Because
fullback. I think
if he's your starting fullback, on form he is, and I've said this already. I think he is the starting fullback right now. He's not going to be playing the midweek game as your bench 10 then. Do you know? So it's kind of, it's that kind of back and forth. It's not like Hog 2013, for instance.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
And he's also gone to Toulouse specifically because Edinburgh agreed that the 10 project wasn't working for him. They brought Ben Healy over. Now we've got Ross Thompson. Kinghorn then goes to Toulouse and becomes this potentially world-class winger, in a couple of weeks of playing with the players that he's with, Ramos, Kapowatsu, Dupont, Entamak. He's levels above where he was 14 months ago when he left Edinburgh. It's amazing how much he's cracked on because of the team he's now playing for as a wing / fullback. Depending on where him and Ramos get positioned in that Toulouse back line. But I think it's those three. I don't think there's another. I don't think unless it's injuries, I can't see anyone else getting into that conversation at the moment.
Yeah. So that's my bolter is Gareth Anscombe. I wanted to kind of bring it up to have that chat about the 10 jersey. Kind of other bolters from Wales that I could have brought up would have been. Hardy said that Teddy Williams could be a shout. I think it's difficult when you've just had 2 or 3 appearances off the bench so far, but I do think that Teddy Williams is a fantastic player. And the other second row for Wales is David Jenkins, I think is a brilliant player. And he's almost a throwback lock in that he tackles all day, hits rocks all day, and he's a very good leader. He speaks very well. So I can see him going on the tour if they are looking around, searching for second rows. But we've done a lot of second row chat on this pod, so I decided to go another way. Okay, Ben, who's your choice for a bolter this week?
I went for Jack Dempsey. He carried yesterday, and his meters carried. I think it was 94 meters, 95 meters off 19 carries yesterday, which for a number 8 is phenomenal. Also, he has history of playing in Australia because he has a cap for Australia. But then he obviously went 3
carries. 146 meters in total, but that includes taking a run up.
Yeah.
35 meters carried in contact, which is the most of anybody. Oh, the other Welsh player I wanted to talk about was Joe Roberts, but I'm saving that for another day.
So you've got a Aussie Scotsman or a Scottish Aussie, whichever way you want to look at it, of whether those two things mean different things, who knows? Who knows Super Rugby inside out, because that's where he played for a number of years before moving north. He is an absolute beast at the breakdown. He's a beast. He's so aggressive. He will run into people all day long. And yesterday was just an absolute phenomenal performance from him. He's had a couple of injuries, but I think he's at that age now where I think he's a dependable, reliable back rower who I think, we'll see how he, fares up against the French sort of pack next week. But he's going in the right direction, I think. And again, plays for a team that's in form. I think any Glasgow forward who is being capped by Scotland at the moment has a shout of going on that line. So I think they've got such a good forward pack that I think we're therefore the continuing and way Scotland have played yesterday, even against England. I think, I know we lost, but there was still, I think, our performance was far better than England's performance. But for a couple of kicks, we would have, potentially be going into Paris next week with an opportunity to win the Six Nations. It's those fine margins that define tournaments and competitions every year. And unfortunately, we fell on, the wrong side of that a couple of times the last few seasons. But I think he's a candidate and he's a bolter. And
nudging
he's
6'5" as well. 6'4", 6'5", 192 centimeters. Not a small boy.
He's a machine. He just seems to be constantly. He just loves contact, and I think.
In the URC final, he was unbelievable.
And I just think about who he's going to be up against. It's going to be Liotta, Valentini, and who else will probably be one of the flankers. And I just think it could be a good matchup. I think Dempsey could manage those. Yeah, the Queen Reds player, isn't he? So I think Jack Dempsey could be a pretty decent contender against all of those three people in the back row. So I just think it could be the right player for the right conditions, and obviously has that sort of history of playing in Super Rugby. So I think there's quite a few things going in his favour. It's a very competitive back line. You've got Jack Morgan, you've got Van der Vliet, you've got Caelan Doris, you've got some English players there as well that potentially could get in there too. So Ty Byrne could play at 6 if they choose to go that way. Chesson we've talked about, Martin we've talked about. It's a competitive back row, but I think someone like him does offer something a bit different and has that pedigree of playing Australian rugby for a number of years before moving north. So that's why he's my bowler.
In my biased opinion, I think Faletau is still ahead of him for the having already toured factor, but Faletau is fragile these days. So if Faletau were to go down, I think that would help him a lot. Caelan, I don't see them taking more than 2 specialist 8s.
No, I was going to bring up an 8 from Ireland, but I don't think he'll tour in Jack Conan. Even though his form is brilliant, I can see him being squeezed out. I think they'll go with Earl and Doris. There might be room for one more, but that all depends on who gets injured elsewhere in the back row. I feel like Fagerson, Dempsey. I think I mentioned Matt Fagerson here before, or one he did, and I chimed in. I do like him as well. Dempsey probably more abrasive, but yeah, I'd probably be less quick to book the flights if I was a number 8 compared to other positions. I think it's a little bit with the fact that the leading front runner for Lions captain is there. It is always a factor then as well, in a position where you don't carry an awful lot of players as well.
Yeah, very true, very true. And like I said, I do think that Talupi Faletau on current form has to go. But I spoke about him on a previous episode. That brings us to the last of the bolters. And Caelan, this was a name that wasn't on my radar at all. You've mentioned him and it kind of surprised me. So I'm interested to hear your justification for it. It's another second row. Told you we were doing a lot of second row chat, and it's that man, James Ryan.
Yeah. I think James Ryan's playing some really, really good rugby at the moment. And sometimes the best thing you can say about a player is if they're on the bench, you wish to start them. If they're not involved, you wish they're involved. I think Ireland really should have started James Ryan yesterday. I think they missed him. They did. I like Joe McCarthy, but he's also quite raw and makes an awful lot of errors, more than, say, James Ryan. Ireland set piece struggled that little bit more without James Ryan in there. And ultimately, as I said at the top of the show, I think second row, I think Joe tours, I think Byrne tours, I think James Ryan probably tours. And then you got the 3 English lads. Itoje has a cert. Itoje and Byrne are the 2 dead certs, guaranteed, I think. So there's room. Now, there's always the factor James Ryan doesn't play anywhere else. He might be too like for like, with, say, Byrne and Itoje already there, potentially. But good leader, good line out option, basically ticks every box. I know the game has kind of evolved away from the lighter second row, but he kind of ticks every box. He's someone I think will go. Again, I don't want to bring everything back to, kind of what I said earlier. Like, have you watched Ireland the last 5 years? Of course, they're going to back their own guy. This is what Andy Farrell does. But James Ryan is more than just their own guy. I think James Ryan is someone that they really respect, that the group really like. I think he'd be great for a Lions tour, to be honest. Very big voice, very good leader, very personable, and a smashing rugby player. And like a second row is one of those positions that very often some of your scheduled midweek guys ended up being in the Test 23. Look at Ian Henderson, for example. He's been thereabouts. Adam Beard, of course, famously last time having got in ahead of James Ryan, who had been carrying knocks before the announcement. So yeah, I think James Ryan is going to be very close. I think it is. I think I can narrow it down to 6 right now. 4, probably maybe 5 will go, and that's the 3 Irish and 3 English. Obviously, Dapper Jenkins, another super performance at the weekend. Not sure if we mentioned him. He's gonna be thereabouts, but again, club form, because we are the second last show of this iteration in the Six Nations block. Leinster are going to go a lot further than Exeter, so that's a part as well. And James Ryan literally lives down the road from Andy Farrell, so not saying it's not a factor, but not saying it's not a factor either.
Yeah, I don't really have strong views on James Ryan. I can't say that I've noticed him. And second rows are very hard to just kind of watch, especially if you're a neutral and you're not specifically watching them. It's the position the hardest to like kind of go, wow, he's good.
It's what makes
stand out.
Byrne, Itoje, Etzebeth world class is the fact that you can spot them from a mile away, but they're like the only ones. Flamont, like Retallick at his prime, but like not every second row. The best second rows often are the lads you don't notice. And James Ryan is, I'm not saying he's the best second row in the world, but he's in that bracket. Like he's in there with like Diager, for instance, even a Scott Barrett. Back in the day, it used to be like, he was the guy who used to play alongside Alan Jones for Wales. So he used to be like Ian Goff, for instance, Donegal Callahan. Like it was the guys you didn't notice who were very good second rows. James Ryan kind of in that bracket. He is pretty old school in his ways, but yeah, I think he's going to be very, very close and possibly a midweek captain as well.
I don't know, Ben, have you got any James Ryan thoughts?
No, I think I'd agree with what you said, Colin. I think you took the words out of my mouth there. I think he's one of those players that just goes about his business. You don't really notice him doing anything because he just performs his role so well. And I think he was very unlucky to miss out on the Lions tour the last time. Was he Irish captain at that point? I can't remember. Just there or thereabouts.
He captained the game in that Six Nations, yeah, but he wasn't. Yeah. Like Sexton was still captain, but Sexton missed 2 games and he captained one of them.
And I do remember him being the one I was most surprised about when the Lions tour was announced. I was like, oh, James Ryan's not going. I was like, oh, that seems odd. And then, the fact that, Adam Beard came in and obviously performed very, very well on that tour and that tour in South Africa. But yeah, I think he's someone that maybe, if there's 6 spots available as opposed to 5, he goes. If there's 5, I think he might miss out again. So I think he's kind of on the kind of the cusp of selection. But again, it just depends on how many second rowers Farrell wants to take and the kind of setup he wants. But I think if he does go, he would be a midweek captain. I think he exudes leadership. He's very professional. He's very diplomatic. I think he's got that. He's got that character and presence about him that. Against Western Force in Perth, or you're playing the Brumbies in Canberra. I think you want someone like him in your change room, geeing you up for, go look, lads, like good performance out of you tonight. You get considered the 23 for the second or the third test if things haven't gone so well in the first test. Stuff like that happens, doesn't it? So, I think. Yeah, potentially he goes, but I think it's a 6 to 5 situation at the moment.
Fascinating. Well, that brings us to the end of this week and this week's episode of Picking the Prize. So it just leaves me to say thank you to the Rugby B and C. Thank you to everybody for listening. If you have managed to get this far and you're still not subscribed, you clearly must like it a bit, or you're that rage and hate filled that you just can't look away. Either way, why not do the same again next week when we'll be doing our final review of the Six Nations, and we might even pick our full 15, depends how it goes. Haven't had that conversation yet, but it might happen. Who knows? So cheers, boys. Thank you to everybody for listening / watching. Enjoy the rugby and I hope everybody's team wins. Cheers.
Bye.
That was the United Rugby Rewind. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.